If you take a look here, I'll just turn this on right here and I'll just like that. What's up, optimizers? In this video, we're gonna learn about a simple technology called TDCS that can be conveniently used at home for next to nothing in cost. And it's so effective that the US government's Department of Defense Research Agency, or DARPA, has researched it as a promising tool to give snipers and other US soldiers the cognitive advantage in warfare. This is a brain hacking, biohacking device that can be used for accelerated learning and enhanced cognition for increasing intelligence. It also dramatically improves focus. Now, you can make one of these at home for 20 to 40 bucks. And I've used this little genius box, as I like to call it, for a number of years, and I'm going to be giving you a short yet thorough explanation and demonstration. So make sure you stay all the way until the end so you can hear the experiences that I've had, some special advice that you're going to want to hear, and also some warnings, as well as some alternative uses such as depression treatment and more. Now, a few years ago, I listened to this podcast, and it was on Radiolab, I think the podcast was, and it was called 9-Volt Nirvana. Now, there was a guest, Sally Adee, and she was editor at the New Scientist when she was at some conference for DARPA, and she stumbled upon this research, and she heard that this thing called TDCS could speed up learning with this TDCS, which is transcranial direct current stimulation. Now, a couple years later, she actually did a piece on this, and she found herself wielding an M4 assault rifle, picking off enemy combatants with a battery wired to her temple. Now, of course, the sniper scenario was a simulation, but it got her interested in this entire world of brain stimulation. Now, researchers claim that juicing the brain with just 2 milliamps, think of a 9-volt battery, can help with everything from learning languages to quitting smoking to overcoming depression. So, what is TDCS? Well, it stands for transcranial direct current stimulation, and it is a form of neuromodulation, meaning that it can modulate or change properties and functions of the brain. It uses a constant, low direct current delivered via electrodes directly to the noggin. Now, it was originally developed to help patients with brain injuries or psychiatric conditions like major depressive disorder. But this is not the same as electroshock therapy, or more accurately named electroconvulsive therapy, or ECT. Now, although you can take a trip to your local Radioshack and you can make one of your own for 20 to 40 bucks, I decided that it was worth saving my time and safety to just buy a unit that someone else had ensured worked properly. Now, after a lot of research, I bought a brand called Apex Type A. It's worked great. I've had it for the last 4 years. So I recommend that you buy a good product like that. But there are many TDCS DIY tutorials that I'm sure you can find on YouTube or online. So I will link to my particular TDCS unit in the description below. But now, it's very important that you are sending the correct voltage to and through your brain. That should be fairly obvious. All right, guys, now I'm going to give you a proper demonstration of the TDCS unit, but before I do, please do me a solid and give me one of those thumbs up and subscribe, or I will be forced to zap my brain with 1,000,000 milliamps of voltage, and my brain damage will be on your hands. All right, guys, so here is the actual device. This is the Apex Type A 18-volt device. Now, as you can see on the back here, we have where you put the batteries in, and there is it being 18 volts, and it takes 9-volt batteries. There's 2 9-volt batteries that add up to that amount of voltage. So we have that in there, and then on the front, you can see that there is a meter, an analog meter with a needle, which is just amazing. Very nice to have an accurate representation of the volts that are actually going through your brain, so you cannot overdo it, okay? And then we have these, we have 2 electrodes running along here. So we have the cathode and being the red, and the anode being the black. Those go into there like so. And we have the on-off switch here. And then we have these little spongy devices, okay? So we have these sponges that the electrodes go to. Now you can see if we open up this here, we have a metal mesh that these sponges attach directly to, and the wire is connected directly to, and therefore it can touch our skin and conduct electricity to where we want it to go. Now, what's important to know, hold on a second here. Okay, so what's important to know is that when you moisten this, you don't want it too wet, you don't want it too dry, and you need it. If you just use regular water, it's not going to work. This needs to be saline. So if you can't buy just regular normal saline, then you can make your own. What you do is you buy a gallon of distilled water, and then you just add 8 teaspoons of sea salt to it, or kosher salt. And you mix it up, and voila, you have natural saline. And then I've already moistened these, but then you just put these, make them wet. And so what that's doing is, when we're sending electrical impulses throughout our body, whether it's our neurons or other parts of our cells communicating one to the other, there's these voltage gated ion channels and electrical impulses that are sent in the way that these are all electrically modulated. And this is done by ions such as potassium, sodium, calcium. So you can imagine that if you don't have those ions in the water, then there's nothing to conduct the electrical signal. So it's very important that you have saline as a conducting mechanism. And you don't want to just put a bunch of salt in there, because if you have too much salt, then you can actually probably burn your skin a little bit easier, because there's kind of an overstimulation, too much of the voltage firing. Okay. Now we will set up. You can see that this is not the most sophisticated setup, but it does the job. So we got these headbands, these athletic bands, but they're going to serve to put these in the right position. Now the position that you put these, there's different placements that you can put these electrodes, and those are called montages. Now each placement or montage serves a different purpose. One purpose can be enhanced intelligence and doubling your learning, like the one that I'm going to show you, but there are also montages that are for depression, or to increase social fluidity, to decrease anxiety. I used one before I went to a New Year's Eve party, and I just noticed I was just like super, usually it takes me a little bit of time to kind of get into the flow with everything, but I was just like easy peasy, feeling the flow, just good, happy times, effortless, good times. So this is pretty powerful, but you have to be careful with it. Do a lot of research. The website that I use to look at the different montages or placements that you can use these electrodes for, to use the TDCS, is totaltdcs.com. I'll link that in the description below. But make sure you're doing well-researched placements. There was a story of this guy who was using, every day he was using like these different placements, and some days, depending on the placements, he'd feel really depressed and angry. Other times he would feel amazing. So I don't think it's safe to guinea pig yourself. I don't even think it's very safe to consistently change this on a daily basis. I think that you should kind of listen to your body and don't do anything too dramatic, and don't be constantly, don't overuse it, and don't change these montages all the time. Kind of, if you're trying to counter effect, oh, well, this made me too anxious, so I'm going to use this montage. Don't flip back and forth like that. I don't think that could be very good for your brain. Your brain's just like, whoa. All right. So I'm going to put the cathode is going to go on my right temple. So right here, we kind of want the center of this, right there. That'll look pretty amazing, pretty styling right now. Definitely could go out on the town wearing this. This is why I wore a tank top. So you double it over. If you notice, I doubled this over. I mean, your arms would have to be pretty freaking huge to not have to need to double it. And then I just flip it under this like that, just the one of them. So I have the anode on my left shoulder, right on my deltoid, like so. Now all we have left is to turn it on. So if you take a look here, I'll just turn this on right here and I'll just like that. Just kidding. So I have turned it on, but I haven't actually put the voltage through it yet. So the way that you actually turn up the voltage, the milliamps, is that you use this knob right here. So as you can currently see, it's at 0. It's at 0. Okay. But we want to just slowly turn the knob like so. Turning the knob. Should probably look at it while I'm turning the knob. So we're hitting that sweet spot. Now, you can see on this, it's a really awesome little box or device because it actually gives you the green zone. The yellow is a warning zone, and then the red is like, you should not be putting this much voltage through your brain. So that's good to know. Now, so 2 milliamps is the magic number. This is the most research has been done with this, that you really can't do any damage in that range. But if you do it too much, then, you know, can't be upset if some bad things happen, right? So you usually leave this for 20 minutes is what they used. This gal did on the podcast, and what I have heard for about 20 minutes. But really, if you're just trying it for the first time, I would do it for as little as 5 to 7 minutes just to see how you feel. Now, the first thing that you will notice immediately is a metallic taste in your mouth. Now, first I thought this was just because like I had fillings, which I still thought was weird, but it's a common phenomenon even if you didn't have fillings. So you're gonna have this like metallic taste in the back of your mouth. Very interesting. And you could feel a little bit stimulating, kind of like, oh, okay. You're not gonna notice a huge difference right away. And while you're doing this, you can kind of read or do something like that. You're gonna sit down and read or do a puzzle or something like that. But after the 20 minutes, just go about your day and you will notice that the effects will keep on going. And now in that podcast that I mentioned, this gal, she talks about her experience after doing, like, first of all, she's doing this simulation. She's a sniper in the simulation. And at first she didn't have the TDCS, and she's up trying to shoot people. And at first she can't determine who she's supposed to shoot. Like, well, should I shoot them or them or them? And so she's having problems just even thinking who she should shoot, let alone doing her job. So then they do the TDCS, and she felt like she was in there forever, high stress. Now they give her the TDCS, put it on like it is now, in this montage and this voltage. And over the time, she goes back into the simulation, and all of a sudden it's just like super easy. Like she knows exactly who she needs to pick off first, like there, and then I'm there and there. And all of a sudden the guy says, hey, you're done. And she's like, what do you mean I'm done? It's only been 3 minutes. And he says, no, it's been 20 minutes. And it's like, no, it's been 3. And then she looks up at the clock, and sure enough, it's been 20 minutes. So this also it made her hyper focused. She was able to focus and really zone in. And what happens when you zone in and hyper focus, time just kind of evaporates, right? Just time goes by within the blink of an eye. Now, she also noticed, and I have noticed, that when she left this place, she was driving and she got onto the freeway, onto, some major traffic. And she noticed that before, it's like she's just kind of not paying attention and just moving. It almost feels like a game, like she's in Mario Kart, and she can see where she can turn and what maneuvers she can make to get where she needs to go faster. And it's almost like this little game, and she can see like several steps ahead, as if she's playing a game of chess, and she can see 10 steps ahead on the chessboard. So it became this fun little thing, and the intelligence, it just dramatically increased. Now, I notice kind of a very strange thing that I bet not a lot of people have experienced, And that is because I'm a musician and a singer, like I'll practice on my voice, and I noticed that I was working on improving this technique and kind of getting a higher pitch and better tone. And I noticed that after using this, I was in the car and I was, practicing, and then boom, I just hit it immediately, and it just made sense. I'm like, oh, first of all, it was like my brain communicated to my muscles better and faster, and something that I had been working on for months was right there. And I went and I played basketball, and I noticed the same thing, kind of like the strategic thinking and seeing ahead of the time, and then also having a better coordination with my muscles, and my brain is communicating to the rest of my body much faster even. It's very, very fascinating what is happening. So this is a amazing self-experiment, even to do once, just to see what can happen. But I personally use this for a period of time, and then I stop. I find that if I'm going to do the full 2 milliamps, I do it for 7 minutes a day for a few days, and then I take a day or two off, and then I'll use it for 7 more minutes at 2 milliamps. And that seems to do fine. Now this one, it does increase your intelligence. It's like it increases your left brain thinking. So you become more analytical, you become more strategic, you're able to problem solve a lot better. But I do find that it kind of makes you a little bit more anxious. It makes you a little bit more rigid. You're not quite as social. So those are kind of some side effects. So as you kind of move more into the left brain, you're kind of taking away from the right brain. And so that's what they think that this does, in a way that if you have one part of your brain that you want to enhance, there's always going to be a downside. You're going to lose some other part of your brain. Not lose, I mean, it sounds like it's never coming back. But, with depression, you can kind of stimulate the back of your, I want to say like hippocampus and other things like that, and it will have decrease your depression. But again, there can be some downsides on the flip side of that. So something important to know and to consider. So with my experience, I did notice that if I use it for too many days, I'll become overstimulated. At one point, I was using this during the winter with seasonal affective disorder, the winter blues. And so I would use this right in the morning. I would use a light therapy box and this at the same time, which was like amazing. However, the combination of those two things started giving me this weird side effect. I started having kind of my eyelids started kind of twitching. It would just twitch on its own, on its own accord. So it was kind of annoying. So I stopped using it, and it took a few weeks to kind of go away. So strange side effect. Now the other thing, I could swear that this kind of was a mood boost for me too. I felt more alert and more peppy. And I had to think, does this increase levels of norepinephrine, which is mainly the main brain chemical for alertness and kind of sharpness of mind? And so I don't know. There isn't a lot of research on that, but it would not surprise me. So now when you turn this off, as you can see here, all we're gonna do, when you do, you don't wanna just power it off. It's kind of like a little too abrupt. So it's just good to get in the habit to just slowly dial it all the way down, like so, and then beep. And that way, also, if you do it that way, then you're never gonna forget to accidentally, if you didn't turn it down, and then you turn it back on and it's like zaps you immediately. You want to make sure that it's all the way turned down, so the next time that you can ramp it back up and it's not just like this sudden shock. Now, so as soon as you take this off, you may notice, depending on how sensitive you are, that you may have a little bit of redness. And that will typically last for 30 minutes or so. Nothing to be alarmed about. And like I said, if you have a higher salinity, like if you made your sea salt water too much, you could find that it's a little bit more irritated or red. But you shouldn't have a issue of it lasting more than 30 minutes. Now, if it's ever painful, then you don't stop. Just stop using it, lower the milliamps, whatever you got to do, but it should not be hurting. You shouldn't be trying to no pain, no gain. No, that's not the way it goes with this type of scenario. Now, also, I was using this a lot while I was working at a local community pharmacy, and it could get pretty busy, pretty hectic, pretty stressful at times, and this kept me really sharp. Again, kind of made me feel like I was ahead of the curve. I had a little bit more strategic thinking. It was easier for me to know what I was going to do next, prioritize. As a pharmacist or people in healthcare in general, you kind of have your very high pace, and you have to be able to prioritize very well and to know what you're going to do next and in which order, and to make sure if you have something else bombard you, all of a sudden you have someone kind of disrupt you and take your time. You have to know what else is in the background and how, all of that. So this is a very good device for that job and for many other things, but it can also, so if you're doing anything where you need a lot of processing power, where you want to think, but again, like, it's not even that. I mean, like I said, as a musician, it helped me increase my singing ability by somehow communicating better to the rest of my body. So pretty cool little box. Now, as I said, you can use this for depression, and to make sure, leave down in the description below, make sure you check out that website, Total TDCS, and that will give you the montage or placement of these electrodes to use for depression. And I really like this brand, this box. It has been very reliable, and I have not had any problems with it. I do need to get rid of these sponges over time. If you leave it, they kind of get gross, or it's really hard to re-wet them after they dry. It's almost impossible. It'll take like an hour if after a while of use. So I got to figure out, I don't think that they make replacement sponges, or else I would buy them. I might not just have to make my own. So in my opinion, I mean, this really is the closest thing to a genius in a box. I don't think that there's anything out there that, one, that this is super affordable, and two, even the more expensive things that are out there, I don't know if they actually have research on them that shows that they can actually double your learning speed. I mean, that's crazy. Like, studies show 40% increase in speed of learning. That's incredible. So great cognitive boost, minimal to no side effects. I did give you some kind of warnings and precautions, but nothing to be overly concerned about. And just, as always, I tell you guys, make sure that you listen to your body and don't try to push anything too hard. If something doesn't feel good, doesn't feel right, then, you know, back off of it, don't use it. I do that all the time. So I'm curious, what do you think of TDCS? Are you going to use TDCS? Are you interested in it? Do you think it's dangerous? Do you think it's awesome? Do you think it's amazing? Do you think it's a genius in a box, like I said? Because, I mean, this really could, maybe you could, I'm sure that you can increase your IQ level while using this. So it's pretty fascinating. But I would love to hear what you have to say down below. Now, if you are into optimizing your brain, make sure that you check out some of our other videos on here. Check out this one on the brain boosting nootropic stack of L-theanine, caffeine, and healthy fats using coffee. And then this video on omega-3 fatty acids and brain boosting performance things of it. And then also check out this video that is specifically tailored for you by the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Take care and to your health.